Mama, I'm in the middle of a video.
It's right to stack to this list of
We compared hip thrust versus squats. We found that subjects pretty much universally preferred hip thrust. Almost everybody, I think literally everybody actually. The study said that they felt their glutes more during hip thrusts. However, throughout the course of the study, we found that squats produced just as much muscle growth in the glutes as hip thrusts.
This is hilarious, guys. This kind of goes hand in hand of what, what you feel. I thought that was one of the rankings of the S tier exercises, what feels the best, right? But here you have you don't feel the squat as good as you feel the hip thrust. But it goes to show that
they felt their glutes more during hip thrusts.
Yeah.
However, throughout the course of this...
But the freaking glutes were practically the same as the hip thrust, but then more adductor, more quads, more hamstrings. The squat's a better exercise than the hip thrust. But going off of today's day and age, the feel and what isolation and all that, everyone's going to say the hip thrust is a better exercise. But it ain't freaking true.
We found that squats produced just as much muscle growth in the glutes as hip thrusts, clearly showing a big difference between how much people felt a muscle group and how much muscle growth was actually being stimulated. I'm currently involved in a more comprehensive study on the relationship between subjective and objective muscle activity. The current state of research, though, is not very promising when it comes to our ability to detect how well a muscle group is actually working during an exercise. Clearly, though, we feel something. What then is it that we feel when we're exercising? Because we feel something's happening in the muscle group. I think it's mostly the sensation of stretch and, importantly, the pump. I think people massively overestimate the pump as an indicator of good gains and an effective exercise.
Yeah, and we've been saying this forever, fellas. Okay, first of all, it ain't about how it feels, right? It's about what's been time and time again over decades been proven to be the freaking staples of training. You know what I'm saying? You want to get jack, stack, succulent, dense, you squat, you deadlift, you bench press, you overhead press, you do pull-ups, you do freaking rows. Okay, but it doesn't feel as good as this isolation movement. Here's the freaking proof in the pudding. It doesn't matter how it feels. And we've been saying time and time again, the pump is not indicative of anything, really. I mean, a pump's fun, right? But it doesn't mean if you get a colossal pump, you're getting huge, right? A pump's fun to get, freaking engorged tissues. But beyond that, most people chase the pump every time they go to the gym, and they remain Johnny PencilNeck.
The pump is also the primary reason why people used to think that short rest intervals were more effective for muscle growth, because you get a lot more metabolic stress, a lot more pump when you don't rest fully in between your sets. But for mechanical tension, it's actually better to rest longer, and we see in research that people get more muscle growth when you do more total volume due to having longer rest intervals. Similarly, a lot of bro bodybuilders are very much drawn to...
That's the thing too, fellas. Chase the pump, right? And I will even say this, that I believe Jeff Nippert had a video of how to cut down time in the gym, because God forbid people spend a lot of time in the gym. Now listen, I know some people don't have all the time in the world to spend in the gym, but I think a lot of times people don't even want to be in the gym. They don't enjoy the process. They just want the results, okay? And that's the wrong freaking mindset to have in the gym. You gotta freaking love the process, because at the end of the day, your results are gonna be very freaking slow. You know what I'm saying? And if you aren't in this for the long run, it's a freaking marathon, it ain't a sprint. If you ain't in it for the long run, you're going to fizzle out, you're going to burn out, you might as well just get the frick out. You know what I'm saying? Enjoy the process, right? Don't expect to be freaking Jay Cutler after a couple years in the gym. It ain't happening, right? So cutting down on the time, I think it's great if you only have 30 minutes. I will say, when I was traveling a lot and I to catch these terrible flights, I got to pack, I got to go to the airport, I only have 30 minutes to work out. Well, then by all means, superset some stuff or hit some freaking German volume training, 10, 60 seconds off, 10, 60 seconds off, 10, hit that. You can get 2 exercises in 30 minutes with 10 by 10 with the 60-second rest. And it's good. It's good to throw that in from time to time. But if we know anything, it's that take long freaking rests so you can horse max freaking loads, because horsing max freaking loads is what's going to turn you into a horse cock, okay? Using the baby dumbbells and the freaking cables and supersetting, this is optimal. It's no, it ain't freaking optimal. You're getting a nice little pump, but that's about the extent of it.
The range partial.
Horse some weights, take some nice long breaks. You know what I'm saying? Horse the weight, take the break. 3 5-minute breaks. So you're freaking peaked, fresh, right horse maximum tonnage.
Mid-range partials are an excellent way to get a good pump, but research quite conclusively shows that training with a full range of motion or doing the partials in the more lengthened part of the movement is better for muscle hypertrophy. That overemphasis on the pump might also explain the myth of the bro hypertrophy zone of like 6 to 12 repetitions.
This is freaking hilarious. It's like, guys, you gotta just be in the trenches at the end of it. You have to get in the freaking trenches. And I say this because he's saying the bro hypertrophy rep range. And I thought for the longest time, like this is like proven, like 1 to 5 reps for strength, 5 to 8 for strength and hypertrophy, 8 to 12 for hypertrophy, 12 to 15 for hypertrophy / endurance, and 15 above. You know what I'm saying? And now he's calling these the bro rep ranges. And it's like, and I'll agree because I'll tell you this first and foremost. For the longest freaking time, for the first 10 years of my training, I was like, oh, you have to make gains in size. You got to do at least 8 to 12, right? This is the freaking hypertrophy rep range. And then it wasn't until I started to get obsessed with like deadlifting and like power, basically. You know what I'm saying? Just like pin presses, different types of deadlifts, Anderson squats, just moving heaviest weights possible. That when I started, the first year I started doing that, I put 10 pounds on. And the only difference was I went from doing bro hypertrophy rep ranges to just trying to horse max weights. And you can look at that and you can say, but you weren't doing the hypertrophy rep range. How'd you gain 10 pounds, right? Doing what? Singles, doubles, maybe triples, tops. You know what I'm saying? Doing the freaking low reps, gaining strength and size. But how does it make sense? It's not the hypertrophy rep range. Same thing, like I probably saw the best freaking deltoid gains when I did, after I had surgery. I couldn't move heavy weight at all, right? I had patellar tendon surgery. So when I got back into the gym, I had to just do BS, you know what I mean? I had to like sit, do cable or like machines because I couldn't risk doing anything with my knee. And then if I did dumbbells, I had to use the lightest weights possible, like 5s or 10s. So I'm like, well, I can't pick up heavier weight, so I'll just go freaking nuts with these 5 or 10 pound dumbbells. So I just do like sets of 100. And holy buckets, like 100 reps on lateral raises. You ever want a freaking way to get just voluptuously engorged delts? Try 100 reps on the lateral raise. So then it's like, but that's the endurance rep range. So now the time has been the proof in the pudding. That doing 1, 2, 3 reps will make freaking you jacked, stacked, succulent, and dense. But then even going upwards of doing maybe 100 reps will make you jacked, stacked, succulent, and dense. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's the grit and the gusto and the intensity and the freaking intent and enthusiasm you bring whatever you do. As long as you push your mind, your body, and your soul to its limits, you put some freaking size on. Now, if you're being Johnny half-ass and doing 8 to 12 with the machines and stuff, but it's a hypertrophy rep range. It doesn't freaking matter. You're Johnny half-ass. Do you get what I'm saying? It doesn't matter the rep range. It matters the freaking gusto you bring to whatever rep range you're in. Who gives a rat's patoot about the rep range? It's about the freaking gusto.
Ultimately maximizes muscle growth. In reality, we now know quite conclusively that the range is more like 5 to 30 and perhaps even broader. I think the reason that people thought that low repetition sets, say a set of 5...
Perhaps even broad. You know what I mean? Like they're going to come out with studies freaking 10 years from now. Like, oh, it doesn't matter any rep range you do. All that matters is the freaking gusto you bring to it. 1 to 100 works. You know what I'm saying?
Was very ineffective for muscle growth is primarily because it doesn't give you much of a bump and you don't feel a lot in your muscles. You just feel sort of overall sensation of being crushed if you're doing heavy squats or deadlifts, but you don't get like a really good mind-muscle connection with your quads or anything.
Brother, I will tell you right now, this is the thing. This is where people are like, oh, deadlifts aren't a back exercise. You don't feel the pump, you don't feel the contraction, you don't feel anything. It doesn't freaking matter. This is exactly what he's saying right now. It doesn't matter what you feel. So when we're doing freaking S tier, F minus tier, it doesn't freaking matter what you feel. So going off the feel, oh, the delts, I feel the delts and the pump way better on the laterals. And I know I just said about the laterals, but I'm saying like overhead press, it doesn't mean that that's garbage just because you feel more of a pump in the lateral raises. You get what I'm saying? You're still gonna get jacked, stacked, succulent, and dense, even if you don't feel it. hit some freaking heavy behind the neck press. You think that ain't gonna make you jacked? Stacked? Succulent dense? Get the frick out of here.
On the other end of the spectrum, if you do very high repetitions, you don't feel a lot during the early repetitions, and it takes a while before you get any pump or burn. Therefore,
it's the freaking gusto, it's the intensity, it's the freaking intent and the desire. Yeah, you don't feel much when you're doing 5 or 10 pounds when you're hitting a set of 100, but I'll tell you, once you get to freaking 70, 80, 90, and you keep pushing, holy buckets. Hit one set of 100 where you're burning out at 60 or 70. Hit one set where you're burning out at 60 or 70, but you freaking push it and you get to 100. Just like the Widowmaker squats, just like the 20 rep squats, right? You get to 10 or 15 reps and it's like you can't do anymore, but you have the freaking heart and the soul. So you push out the extra 5 to 10 reps. You think that shit ain't building muscle? Get the frick out of here.
people thought, oh, that's not very effective, even though we now know quite conclusively from research that even very high repetition sets are very effective for muscle growth as long as you take them close to failure. So that's why our sensations, when we do feel something, that something is not necessarily indicative of muscle growth and a good training stimulus.
Yeah, it doesn't freaking matter what you feel. Get the frick out of here. It doesn't matter what you feel.
On the other hand, if we don't feel something, we also have clear researchers and cases where we do actually get a good training stimulus. This is especially the case for the glutes, for example. Research has found that this idea of,
oh, but I don't feel I don't feel my glutes in the squats. Well, here you go, freaking Johnny PencilNeck. Now you can go off of the science. It doesn't matter what you feel, okay? You know what I see perfectly for that? Deadlifts, back. But I don't feel it. I only feel it in my legs. Well, here's your science, right? Here's your freaking analytical data. Here's Menno Henselmans telling you, you know what I mean, with the freaking quotations. Get the frick out of there.
amnesia is largely a myth. A lot of people don't feel their glutes when they're doing squats, for example, as we also found in our study, but that doesn't mean they're not working.
It's hilarious, okay? This glute amnesia that he's talking about. Guys, this is why all this horse crap at the end of the day, and I'm not saying what he's saying is horse crap, but this video is actually pretty cool. I like it because it's kind of goes totally with what I've been saying for the longest time, okay? And at the end of the day, like, time and time again, the shit that people have been doing for decades, that we already know, the tried and true stuff, like, it's the tried and true stuff. People trying to reinvent the wheel, over time, it just gets proven to be horse crap, okay? So glute amnesia. Guys, I remember when I was, about 10 years ago, when I was really deep in the trenches of trying to, you know, at the forefront of strength and conditioning and all that. And I was working at the sports performance facility. And that was the big thing. It's like, oh, we got it for activation. And then at top of the freaking line, you know, professional athletes training there. And the big thing that they had was the glute activation. You know what I mean? And it made sense. It's like, well, you're sitting at the desk, you're sitting at the car, you're sitting all day, your glutes aren't active, they're shut off. You got to wake those suckers up before you get into your training, right? Because they're asleep. You know what I'm saying? So it'd be like, you know, glute bridges, monster band, or not monster band, but like monster walks, banded lateral walking, all that kind of stuff. Clamshells, banded clamshells, kettlebell swings, all that kind of stuff to wake them up, turn them on. And it's like, wow, that's pretty cutting edge stuff. And now here we are 10 years later saying it doesn't freaking make a difference. Holy buckets! It doesn't make a difference. What do you think 10 years from now we're going to look back at and say, you know what? All this Johnny horse crap stuff doesn't make a difference. And what does make a difference is getting in the gym, getting down and dirty, nitty and gritty, bringing intensity to your training. Doesn't matter what you do, it's how you freaking do it. Doesn't matter the rep ranges. It matters the freaking intent you bring to it and that you push yourself. That's all that matters. All that ever matters is that you push yourself and you try to progress. All right? The freaking paralysis by analysis, you know, digging deep in the minutia of the training doesn't freaking matter.
Working hard research very conclusively shows that squats are an excellent exercise for the glutes. Research has also looked at gluteal activation drills. A lot of people feel that whereas they normally don't feel their glutes during squats, when they do glute activation drills in their warm-ups, the glutes now wake up supposedly and they do feel them. This theory has also been very comprehensively debunked in multiple studies. In reality, what's probably happening is that when you are focusing more on your glutes with your warm-up drills, you're exercising them more, they literally warm up a bit more, you probably feel them more, or it's possible that some people feel them more at least. For me, they also don't do anything. But if you feel them more because you're focusing more on them, that doesn't mean that they're actually activating more, it just means that you're now focusing more on them. Or, in general, maybe there is more subjective sensory feedback, but it doesn't mean that objectively there's more motor activity in the muscle group. If we look at
the feedback, you know what I mean? In bro lingo, that's probably the mind-muscle connection. So it's just like, it's funny though, because it's like it doesn't matter at the end of the day. You can feel something, and it's like, oh, that's the mind-muscle connection. It's kind of like the concentration curl, right? It's like, oh, I can focus, I can feel the contraction. I really feel it, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, you gotta squeeze, and you gotta mentally be in each rep. Whereas the opposite would be just horse cock and jeet curls, you know what I'm saying? And then it's like, you don't feel these that much, but at the end of the day, science 10 years from now will probably prove it's like, actually, horse cock and jeet curls is the superior way of building biceps. And you know what I mean? Like, and it's probably true in all honesty. It's probably true. Because, boy, frick, I just lost my train of thought. No! With the squat, you know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, I feel the hip thrust. I feel it. I prefer this. I don't feel the squat, where the squat's just hoisting, you know what I mean, heavy weight. And there's a point, guys. I'm not talking El Campeon technique. I'm talking about, frick, get that up, try to control that sucker a little bit, you know what I'm saying?
Studies that compared different exercises and looked at how much muscle growth they got in a certain muscle group from different exercises. We also
Thank you for being my friend.
Diverge from what people intuitively prefer or do or sense in their muscles. For example, for the triceps, pushdowns are far more popular based on my experience and Google search data than overhead triceps extensions. Yet as I showed in a recent video, overhead triceps extensions stimulate 40% more growth than triceps pushdowns.
Okay, so this is where the 40% exercise selection, the mistake can cost you 40% of your gains. It's a good title. It's a clickbait title for sure. But in this argument, it does make sense then that I get it. I kind of think that the 40% is, I think it'll be stupid to hyper focus on that. Like 40%, it's like with the D-aspartic acid. Like what is 40% gonna do? You know what I'm saying? Jack Diddley. Jack Diddley! My name is Jack Diddley! But this is good. I mean, I guess this proves that I actually am interested in this. And this is a good video, okay? So, a lot of times I look at stuff and I'm like, oh, this is, this is horse crap and this is stupid and all that. But this is good because I like this. I like this video. And I think that this has a lot of value because it shows, because again, everyone would say, oh, I feel these tricep push downs more. I can feel it, the squeeze. I can get the big stretch. I can control it. Whereas here, you get the stretch, but it's hard to feel the squeeze on the overhead triceps extensions, right? The French press. You don't feel it as much, but this proves it doesn't matter what you feel. This has been shown to be superior to this. And I do like that because I'll be honest, I don't really ever do like free weight French press per se, but this is proof that I probably should do it. Okay. So I like this. In the past, I have taken my neutral grip, like Swiss bar, and I've done overhead stuff. And I agree. It's kind of like I don't feel a pump and I don't feel it as much, right? So in that regard, I probably would, if I'm at the gym and it's doing the cables, I would probably pick those over doing something like that. So I will admit that I'm a bit of a Johnny Pencilneck in that regard. But to play devil's advocate to myself, I could probably push this more. You know what I'm saying? Like for here, once I hit kind of burnout, you're kind of done. You know what I'm saying? It's hard to force reps out. And throughout Wolf Coaching's video the other day, he was saying that the forced reps have been scientifically proven to be beneficial in a way, right? And how do you force reps? Well, you start to get, a little bit of cheat in it, freaking use some cheat to get down, control the eccentric, all those techniques, drop sets, things of that sort. So for a cable pushdown, it definitely would be easier to use the strict form and then start to get a little freaking the body English into it, right? And then start to freaking do that, fight the eccentric, and then change easy drop set versus changing weights on a barbell, an easy curl bar, or a dumbbell, right? So in that regard, I do think that it doesn't matter what you do, right? Exercise selection, this one's 40% superior. I get it. If you're going freaking tit for tat, I get it. But with this cable push down, I probably can push myself more because it's easier to change up the freaking weights. It's easier for me to get the freaking body English in it. You know what I'm saying? So in that regard, I will go back and play devil's advocate to myself that it doesn't matter what you pick. It matters the freaking intensity that you're bringing to it. And it matters the freaking desire to push your mind, body, and soul. And I think the cable is probably easier to do that than the overhead extension. But it's good to know that theoretically, tit for tat, this is superior.
According to the best study we have on this topic, we also have a nice study that compared seated leg curls versus lying leg curls. And seated leg curls were far more effective than lying leg curls for the hamstrings. To my knowledge, there was nobody in the industry saying that seated leg curls were far more effective than lying leg curls.
Thank you for being my friend. That's a pretty good one, actually. I do like that. It's good to know that if you go to a commercial gym and you have the option of one versus the other, you'd probably pick the seated, I guess, versus the lying leg curl. Now, for me, I only have the freaking lying leg curl in my garage, so I don't have much of a option to work with there. But if you're at a gym, they have a million different leg curls. It's good to know that. And this one is good to know that because it doesn't really make a difference. Like, unlike the cable where you can easily kind of cheat and change the weights up and really force out extra reps, you can't, on these machines, you can't really do that. You know what I'm saying? They're the same. You can change the weights up very easily. You can use the same amount of body English, tit for tat, one versus the other. So if you had to pick, it'd be superior to go with the seated. So kudos, that's beneficial.
Experience, most people prefer lying leg curls, whereas people equally prefer seated and lying leg curls. Another example we see from research is with calf raises. In my coaching experience, quite often when people cannot do a straight leg calf raise, what they do is a bent leg calf raise. So they do the seated calf raise instead of the standing calf raise. In reality, seated calf raises don't work the calves nearly in the same manner. You take out the gastrocnemiae, which is like the big bulgy calf parts that most...
This is another one of those things too, where the freaking paralysis by analysis is like, well, you gotta freaking do the seated and the standing because the seated hits the soleus more, whereas the standing doesn't. And now we're just proving it's like it doesn't matter what you freaking do. You know what I'm saying? But I guess in this case, it does matter that you shouldn't do the seated at all. Don't even waste your time on it. So that's another good one. Don't even waste your freaking time. Don't even do the seated. But it kind of makes sense because we're thinking like, what are the best exercises for the most part? Deadlifts, squats, overhead press, dips, bent over rows. I'm not gonna say T-bar row like I know all the Johnny PencilNeckis want these days. Bent over rows. It's all the stuff that you're not sitting. You're standing. You stand in all this stuff. The best stuff's the stuff that's in the real world application. You're standing. So does it make sense that the best calf exercise would be one that you're just sitting in? Or would it make sense that it's the one you're freaking standing and horsing weights, like in the real world, like our bodies are meant to do, right?
People think about when they think of their calves, it takes it out completely out of the movement. So seated calf raises are almost entirely ineffective to train the gastrocnemiae. You're training the soleus, which is kind of the thinner muscle underneath, when you're doing a seated.
Guys, it's kind of funny how the internet is just a wild place, isn't it? Anyways, you upload stuff and it's like here, for instance, and Johnny PencilNeckis, why are those forearms so small or whatever. But then it's like if you just freaking, it's all about angles. It's all about perception. Perception's reality. You know what I'm saying? This is about a 21-inch arm, okay? So about 17 or so, right? maybe 16 and a half at the moment, you know? But like, it's perception's reality. So here, it's like, oh man, train your forearms. They look absolutely tiny. But then here, it's like, holy buckets. You know what I'm saying? So it's stupid to go off of the internet. And it's especially because people get the wide fish angle lenses. If I had a fish angle lens, I'd look like I was 5,000 pounds right now. You know what I'm saying? But I use a standard crap iPhone camera. But you could have, 5'2" freakazoid, right? On a fish angle lens and all that. You're like, oh my God, that's the biggest man in the world. You know what I'm saying? The internet's just a funny place.
Or specifically bent leg calf raise, where you're doing a straight leg or standing calf raise, you train the entire part of the calf. So clearly, a lot of people don't realize, they don't feel that they're omitting an entire muscle group essentially from the exercise. In my recent video on triceps training, I also showed research that bench presses and push-ups are relatively ineffective to train the long head of the triceps because of its biarticulate muscle content. We see that triceps isolation exercises stimulate substantially more muscle growth in the long head of the triceps and therefore the total triceps compared to doing bench presses and push-ups.
You know, that is funny because that does go back to, hey, I've been in that school of thought too. When people are like, oh my God, like you act like you know it all, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, I don't, brother. I will be the first to say I'm a dumb, meathead, buffoon, dimwit many times, okay? I don't care, you know what I'm saying? People call me stupid and all that all the time. But the truth of the matter is I've been freaking deep in the trenches of lifting for 25 years. And you remember when I said I've done everything? I've freaking done it all, guys. I've done the tempos, slow and controlled, the pauses, the extreme ego lifting. I've been on both sides of the spectrum. You want to talk about ego lifting? I have been there, done that 1,300 pound rack pulls. You want to talk about the slow, tempoed, controlled pause? I've done freaking Charles Poliquin, tempo training, Smith machine, 2 arms down, pause, or what was it? No, I'm sorry. 1 arm down to milk the extra eccentric strength, pause, 2 hands to it, push it back up. 1 arm down, 2 hands to it, push it back up. Okay, I've done all of that, right? And I've also fallen into the school of thought for many years that like pull-ups are all you need for biceps, right? And bench, your triceps will get plenty of work. Like we're just these big compound movements. Like you're gonna get jacked. You know what? And I will say, you will get jacked and stacked for sure. If you have big pull-ups and a big bench, you're not gonna be Johnny Toothpick. You know what I'm saying? You won't. But then I've come to the conclusion where I was forced to basically, like after I had like ACL and meniscus surgery and stuff, where it's like, all right, I can't do these heavy lifts, so I have to just do arms. And just doing tons of arm work, it's like, holy buckets. Like if you just train your arms will get big. Probably bigger than if you only trained your arms through the compound lift where you're like, it's a chest, shoulder exercise, back, bi, like all that. You get what I'm saying? So of course, throwing in direct isolation work is going to be beneficial. You know what I mean? Like you're gonna make a little bit more gains. Is it gonna be like a night and day difference? Probably not, but you will be a little bit more jacked, stacked, succulent, and dense when you throw it in.
Yet bro wisdom says that bench presses are an excellent triceps exercise, and there are all of these threads on bodybuilding for.
Dude, I wouldn't call that bro wisdom though. That's not bro wisdom. That was the peak of powerlifting sensationalism wisdom, back 10 years ago. The bros have always been about arm days and stuff. That's not bro wisdom.
Social media about why powerlifters have amazing triceps, but their pecs are not necessarily as good as those of bodybuilders because they do a lot of bench pressing supposedly. In reality, we see that bench presses are not that great for the triceps because they don't stimulate the largest, most important head very well. No pun intended. I've also previously talked about how leg extensions are actually a more complete quad exercise than squats. Prevailing bro wisdom is that squats are the best exercise possible for the quads, but research it.
I wouldn't say it's bro-wisdom. They're the bro-wisms that the freaking leg extension is superior. Brother, you're throwing the powerlifting school of thought into the freaking bodybuilding. It just ain't the case, okay? But this is another one too. I mean, didn't Jeff Nipper just talk about how the squat was like the most superior for the quads, like better than the leg extension? I think he had that in his freaking tier rankings. And I'm not going to disagree with it. Like, if you have a big squat, your freaking quads are going to be jacked. But I've also really harped on the fact that it's very important to throw leg extensions in, right? You can't, I think, just in terms of just like knee health, knee strength, and yeah, for superior quadriceps, like, why wouldn't you just squat and do the leg extensions? It shouldn't always be one versus the other. Now, I get if it's like Smith machine, incline, tempo, pause versus free weight, incline, bench. I get that's one versus the other. And in my opinion, the free weight's always going to be superior. But like, you're comparing a squat with a leg extension, just do both of those. You know what I'm saying? Just do them both. It's like, should you do bench or should you do flies? You should do them both.
Because the rectus femoris, the middle head of the quads, is not trained well at all, literally barely trained, by squats because, again, of its very articulate muscle conflict. Leg extensions don't suffer from this problem and therefore stimulate the entire quads. I've yet to meet any person that subjectively felt this before they knew of the biomechanics and the research, even though the biomechanics are quite clear. We see this inability of ours to detect muscles not activating due to biarticulate muscle conflict also in research on squat.
Anyways, listen, I think this is a good video. I do think this is a good video. I think this is it's interesting and all that. But at the end of the day, too, this affects the squat training with different depths and lower. Let's see that say here.
Squats. Squats are a very, very poor hamstring exercise. The hamstrings barely grow from squatting. Yet a lot of people...
I will say this, though. If you freaking, squat with a hinge, like some people are very hinged when they squat, it's probably not going to be a superior hamstring exercise, but boy, oh boy, you're going to feel it in your freaking hamstring. It's like a low bar squat. But for me personally, what works best for me, guys, is what I've learned in terms of freaking strength. And I know people don't care about strength now. They want to be all show, no go. But in my experience, I like to squat and then take a day to do upper body. I like upper lower first and foremost. So that's the best. That works the best for me. So if I squat on Monday, and I found I have to squat if I want a big deadlift, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you just deadlift, your deadlift's going to be plateaued, right? But I think this is also proven in some study or something like that, that if people that just squatted added 5% to their freaking deadlift, and it's like, well, what's 5% of it? It doesn't matter what it is. That's not even the point. The point is that the stronger your squat gets, the stronger your deadlift gets. And a lot of times, like, if you just specialize on the deadlift, you'll get to a point, but you're going to plateau. Whereas squatting directly carries over to your deadlift. It's because I've gone through points where I was like, let me just do deadlift variations and see how my deadlift improves. And then I've gone through points where I've just squatted and not deadlifted, and I come back to the deadlift, and the deadlift gets pretty freaking strong. So I've come to the conclusion that, because I like upper lower split, Monday, say I squat. And I've also learned this too, guys. There's so many things I've learned, so many freaking boatloads of knowledge I'm spewing at you. And you can call me a dumb meathead buffoon dimwit. It's okay. I'm just telling you the stuff I've learned from being in the trenches. Upper body, lower body. Upper body, lower body. Upper body, lower body. It's the best. It's the best way to train. Because sometimes, like for instance, when you're on an upper body day, stuff might not feel good, right? And it doesn't matter what your program. This is why you have to be in tune with your body, and you have to have a level of instinctual training, I think, to just have the best gym sessions every single time you go. So if it's an upper body day, but for some reason the bench isn't feeling fiery and snappy, or something's off, whatever it may be, elbow pain or something like that, that's okay. You can just skip that totally and do something else on that upper body day, because in 2 days, basically, or one lower body day, you're right back to your upper body day. Then you can get back to the pressing or something like that. Or you'll even have another one. You get 3 opportunities in the week to hit your upper body. So you can get, within those 3 opportunities, you can get the big money-making exercises in one way or another. And what I've learned is, so the best thing for me, for overall just strength, which is gonna increase the size with 100%, is that, say on Monday I squat, okay? After I squat hard, I'm done. Because if I squat and then I do, stiff-legged deadlifts or tons of leg extensions or leg curls or Nordic leg curls or something like that, I'm gonna be too fried on Wednesday, right? And I don't wanna be too fried on Wednesday, because on Monday if I squat, On Wednesday, I can deadlift, okay? And then I can deadlift, and afterwards, I'm gonna be kind of fried after that. So then maybe I'll just hit some Nordic leg curls or something like that afterwards, right? Not too much. You can't do too much volume, because if you train hard and heavy and really with a lot of intensity and intent to push yourself, you can't do too much. It's when you have too much, like I'm gonna do this, and this. You end up bullshitting, half-assing everything. So when you just have one thing as the priority, you bet your freaking buns you bring 110% to that one thing. And then if you have some juice left, you can hit a second. You know what I mean? But don't go overboard, because the frequency's high of those lower body days and upper body days, right? Oh, frick, I forgot what we were even talking about here. Anyways, I had some golden tidbits. I don't know if I spewed them at you enough, but I totally lost my train of thought. Let's get back to what we're talking
People for a long time thought that squats were in fact an excellent hamstrings exercise, and many bodybuilders still classify squats as a total lower body or a total...
Oh, yeah. So my point was, when I squat on Monday, I'm freaking peaked and primed and ready to go on Wednesday. And that is because, it's the way I squat high bar. Specifically, I squat only with a safety squat bar now, because it's like ultra high bar. And like any hinging or rounding, it's punishing. It's a very punishing exercise. It's unforgiving. You know what I'm saying? So it kind of forces you to squat in the high bar position. And to go along with what he's saying, on Wednesday, I'm freaking peaked and primed and always ready to hit a big sort of deadlift variation. And that's because probably my hamstrings aren't fried. When I was trying to deadlift more frequently, say Monday deadlift, Wednesday deadlift, whatever, I found that honestly, like posterior chain, it couldn't recover quick enough. But squatting on Monday, deadlifting on Wednesday seems to work great.
Leg workout. I remember there was even a big argument where Ripito, who has studied biomechanics and trained tons of people, still argued in defense of squats being a great exercise for the hamstrings. So clearly, even very experienced, very knowledgeable people who have even studied biomechanics.
Now here's the deal with that. I don't think squatting alone would give you just maybe colossal hamstrings. But Ripito, he's deadlift, squat, bench, just basics like that. And I will say this, that if you squat a lot and you get strong at the squat a lot, or if you squat a lot and get strong with the squat, your deadlift's gonna get up. And when your deadlift gets up, you can't say the deadlift's not it's just the quintessential, amazing hamstring exercise. Amazing for your upper back too, right? Because we know it's a back exercise. It just works everything on the back side. So between having a big squat, you're gonna have a big deadlift. And when you have a big deadlift, you're gonna have big freaking hamstrings. Okay, so they go hand in hand in that regard. I wouldn't cause freaking paralysis by analysis in that regard. Squat, deadlift, you're gonna have a complete jacked and stacked legs. And I'm not opposed to throwing other accessory lifts in there. Like I said, Nordic leg curls are freaking incredible for hamstrings. And then of course, a leg curl as well, leg extensions. And I found just generally for my knee health, throwing some calf raises in seems to help my knees feel better as well. So there you go. You don't really need more than that.
Still make gross errors in how effective certain exercises are for certain muscle groups.
But if you want more than that, freaking lunge, right? Walking lunges, reverse lunges, Bulgarian split squats. You do that stuff, guys, you're freaking money. You're gonna have horse legs.
As a final example, I've made videos on this channel about the effect of grip width during bench presses and pull-ups. Most people intuitively find that chin-ups with a more closer grip and a supinated grip versus a pronated or slightly wider grip has a much stronger effect on their biceps. You feel the biceps a whole lot more during a close supinated grip chin-up than during a more moderate grip pull-up or a neutral grip, slightly wider grip pull-up. In reality, the differences are super small, probably insignificant for most trainees.
That's actually really good information, because when I do supinated like chin-ups, I feel like I might almost, if it's like totally supinated, I feel like I could tear my bicep through the stretch, you know what I mean? So that's good to know that it doesn't even make a difference, whether you're neutral grip or, pronate. I think he said even pronate, holy buckets. Well, whatever, it doesn't make a difference. So that's pretty good to know, because then it's like, don't even risk tearing your bicep with, weighted chin-ups if the difference is negligible. That's freaking hell of a tidbit right there.
Similarly, for the bench press, the effect of grip width is massively overstated. If you go super wide, yes, there will be a slight decrease in triceps activity, but it's not nearly as large as you would think or feel. In conclusion, while we don't have a whole lot of research directly comparing subjective and objective muscle activity, the current research quite clearly shows us that relying
Maybe it didn't say pronated. I don't know. Whatever, it doesn't matter.
on your feelings to select your exercises and to see which muscles are being activated is a very fallible way to select your exercises. You should be very skeptical of what you feel, and just because you don't feel a muscle group during exercise does not mean it's not being trained well. And if you do feel a muscle...
I mean, this is great. This is a great video. I like this. I think this this kind of goes against... This is crazy. This kind of goes against all the tier rankings and all that stuff.
Deadlifts don't give me a great back pump.
You should be skeptical if that's really mechanical tension that you're feeling, or some other sensation like the pump or stretch that may not correspond with muscle hypertrophy in the long run. If you think about it, it's actually quite obvious that we don't have this internal sense of how well a muscle group is being trained by an exercise, because most people, when they do an exercise, the very first thing they ask is, which muscle groups does this train? Clearly, we cannot just sense it. So the take-home message is, you should rely primarily on science and biomechanics to select your exercises, and you should take your feelings with a big grain of salt.
All right. I think mainly more so we should rely on the decades of what people say are the tried and true exercises, because they're tried and true and you can't go wrong with them. With all these cable optimization, stretch and squeeze, like it seems that the focus of those is like the pump and the feel, and this is directly going against that. It doesn't matter what you feel, the pump doesn't freaking matter, right? So let's understand that the tried and true classics are that because they work, and there's really not too much more to figure out than that. But I do think that I like this information. It is interesting. It was a pretty good video. We'll have to watch more Menno Henselmans videos together.
I don't recommend fully ignoring your feelings, and especially listening to pain signals can be very productive, but I think biomechanics and scientific research should take precedence over anything that you feel. You shouldn't worry too much about not feeling muscle groups during exercise. That doesn't mean your program's not effective. I hope this knowledge helps you design better training programs, and if you find this useful, I'd be honored if you like and subscribe.
My goodness. Studious. Good stuff. Good video. I'd be honored. I should start saying that kind of stuff. Is that why I don't grow more? Is it because I don't tell people that you know what I'm saying? I feel like most channels, they like leave a comment, like, and subscribe, you know, freaking comment for the algorithm. Like, do people like just not think about this when they're watching stuff? Do I have to freaking tell them? Maybe I gotta start doing that like other channels do. Like, freaking, it would float my jimmies if you guys liked, left a comment for the algorithm, and subscribed to Dr. Density and Mr. Spice. Dr. Jackal and Mr. Hyde. You get what I'm saying? Dr. Density and Mr. Spice in the house. Dr. Density, he's the studious philosopher. And then once he sucks down some Ricky's Rotund raspberry, he becomes Mr. Spice.